You watched Game of Thrones, but you never understood it. If you're confused about where House of the Dragon, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and all these new Game of Thrones spin-offs fit in the timeline, you're not alone. Because the Game of Thrones universe isn't a straight line. It's a 12,000-year web of wars, dragons, rebellions, and collapsing empires. So in this video, we're breaking down released shows, confirmed spin-offs, rumored projects, canceled ideas, all in exact timeline order, so you finally understand what happens when and how everything connects. But warning, there will be spoilers. Let's start with the backbone of this universe. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is set roughly 300 years after Aegon's conquest. By this time, the Targaryen Dynasty is nearly extinct, dragons are long gone, and the Iron Throne is controlled by the Baratheons, at least officially. Robert Baratheon is king. But the real power? The Lannisters. The central conflict here is power. Who has the right to rule? Who has legitimacy? And who survives? The War of the Five Kings, the return of dragons, the rise of the White Walkers, ancient magic. Everything that happens in spin-offs either builds toward this or explains how we got here. Next, House of the Dragon set about 170 years before Game of Thrones. This story covers the Targaryen civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons. King Viserys names Rhaenyra his heir, but after his death, Aegon II is crowned instead. That decision fractures the Targaryen dynasty. What follows? Dragon versus dragon. Brother versus sister. Fire from the sky. This is the moment the Targaryens destroy their own greatest weapon, their dragons. And it explains why, centuries later in Game of Thrones, dragons are almost extinct. This is the beginning of the fall. Then comes A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms set about 90 years before Game of Thrones. Dragons are gone by now. The story follows Sir Duncan the Tall and a young Aegon Targaryen, the future King Aegon V. This isn't a massive war story. It's smaller, grounded, personal. It explores the human side of the Targaryen dynasty and builds toward the later decline of their bloodline. It's political, but also intimate, and it connects directly to the Mad King's ancestry. Now let's go back to the origin, Aegon's conquest set at year 1 AC, literally when the calendar begins. Before Aegon Targaryen, Westeros wasn't united. It was 7 independent kingdoms. Aegon and his sisters invade Westeros with 3 dragons, Balerion, Vhagar, Meraxes. This is when the Iron Throne is forged. This is when the 7 kingdoms become one. Every show, House of the Dragon, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Game of Thrones, all trace back to this moment. This is the foundation. Rumored projects. The Sea Snake, focusing on Corlys Valerian's voyages across the world. This would expand the global politics and exploration side of Westeros. 10,000 ships, telling the story of Princess Nymeria migrating to Dorne roughly 1,000 years before Aegon's conquest. This explains Dorne's culture and resistance to dragons. The Golden Empire, Yitai, potentially exploring the eastern continent of Essos, long before Valyria. This would massively expand the world beyond Westeros. Massive historical event, the doom of Valyria. Before Westeros mattered, Valyria ruled the world. 40 Dragonlord families, unmatched power, until a cataclysm destroyed it all. If any project covers this event, it would be the most epic show in the franchise. Cancelled and shelved projects Blood Moon, set 8,000 years before Game of Thrones during the Age of Heroes. It would have explored the first White Walkers and the Children of the Forest, cancelled after 1 pilot. Snow, a Jon Snow sequel series, currently shelved because there's no source material beyond the show's ending. The big picture. The Game of Thrones universe isn't one story, it's about the rise of power, the corruption of power, and the collapse of power. Aegon's conquest shows the creation, House of the Dragon shows the destruction, Game of Thrones shows the consequences, And we've only seen a tiny fraction of this 12,000-year history. So tell me, which era are you most excited to see next? Valyria, Aegon's conquest, or Jon Snow's future? Comment below, because winter may be over. But this universe is just getting started.